Hello folks, it's been a while. I know I've been saying that a lot recently on videos, but you know, it is what it is. Life gets in the way. I'm not a consistent YouTuber, although I will try to be at some point. I keep thinking that time comes, and then things happen that mean I have an unsteady kind of life. So unfortunately, for now, I'm just gonna kind of just let nature take its course, and I'm not going to put any definitive thing on it. But today I came across an article that kind of bothered me, and I'm going to do another video about broadly later as well with a friend of mine. So that should be interesting. But for now, we're going to get into this one because the 51 ways to make the world a less hostile place for fat people. Now this article bothered me a lot because, like, from the title you'd think, okay, that's alright, okay, let's just get into it because you'll see why it's problematic. Like, anyone with a sane point of view, you'll be able to see why this is, like, not quite right. Now we're not going to get into the introduction because it's just pointless. Let's just get straight into the points here. So, number one. Learn to cope with the word fat. We fatties refer to ourselves in lots of different ways. Some people prefer plus size, bigger, curvy, or person of size, but plenty of us describe ourselves as fat, and it's not self-deprecating. Now, I mean, I'm not going to do this at every point because there's 51 points here, so I might just glance over some of them and just read them and stuff like that and not really get into them too much. But this first one we have to kind of address because, number one, we can cope with the word fat, okay? Like, there's no need to even condescend us like that. But also, some of these other titles, like plus size does not necessarily mean fat. Like, you can be tall. You can also be, like, muscular. Also, like, plus size, there's different varying degrees of fatness. So, like, bigger is not the same as curvy, for instance. So, like, in my opinion, bigger is like just being a bit chunky. Curvy is like the kind of... Because, I mean, men don't get to be curvy. But they can be husky, which is kind of like the male equivalent. Where it's like they wear their fatness in a way that kind of looks manly. And, like, curvy is the feminine version of that, where they kind of wear their fat in a feminine way, where it's not, like, just hanging down and whatever. They're just a bit, like, chunky, but, like, in an hourglass kind of feminine way, which actually can be quite sexy, in all honesty. Like, I think curvy girls are probably some of the better girls in general. But bigger is just, like, people who maybe are a bit bigger than that. But again, not like completely morbidly obese, where the fat's just hanging off them, but they are kind of bigger. A person of size just seems a little bit like they're trying to co-opt the person of colour type shit, and it's just like, I'm not really fat. Like, my inward... This is just my avatar. I'm just a fat avatar. I just happen to have this. I'm just a person of size. Like, I'm not actually this person. I'm just a person of size. It's so stupid. But fat can be self-deprecating. And it's not always self-deprecating, but it can be self-deprecating. And I've known this with many fat people that I've known, or bigger people, whatever you want to call them. And to be honest with you, a lot of the time, the reason why they take that self-deprecating tone is because they know they've got a problem. And they know there's an issue. Because let's face it, nobody is a kid growing up going, I want to be a fat person when I get older. Nobody thinks like that. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. And we'll probably get more into those as we go along. But, okay then, so... Second point, if someone refers to themselves as fat, don't fall over yourself trying to correct them. Instead, ask yourself why you've attached a negative value to that word. Now, the reason why there's a negative value to the word is because of all the health implications that come with it, as well as the mental implications. Like, people who are overweight tend to have a lot of mental health issues because they don't see themselves in a very good light. So that's why it's negative, because a lot of the time fatness doesn't really bring a lot of positive traits with it. You know what I mean? Like, that is just a fundamental observation in life. I'm not trying to have a go at fat people, not trying to hammer it home to be like, oh, fat people deserve to feel this way. They don't deserve to feel that way, but it is within their power to do something about it, and we all know that, and that's part of the shame, that's part of the self-deprecation part of it. Some people are very accepting of their bigness, some people can't help it, some people are too lazy, and they'll go, you know what, I don't even give a shit, I'm fat, I want to be fat, fuck it. But they do know, though, that it's not necessarily good, even still. You know what I mean? They still know it's not necessarily good, they just don't care. There's a difference there. But, I mean, you know, some people do say that they're fat when they're not fat. And then, you know, you do have to say, like, look, you're not fat. You know what I mean? That's kind of a thing. And some people can just be a bit husky or be a bit curvy and then say they're fat, when really you don't consider them fat. Because honestly, everyone has their own... They all have their own kind of subjective versions of what they consider fat. Like me, it is morbidly obese. Like, it's like the tail end of obese into morbidly obese. When it's clearly very unhealthy. That is, for me, that is fat. People who are curvy, husky, a bit chubby, a bit chunky, stuff like that, but still kind of attractive, still jolly, still have good self-esteem, still all this stuff about them. They still can function in life, they can bend down, they can walk around, they can do stuff. All those kinds of people, yeah, we can say they have weight issues, but I don't consider them fat. You know what I mean? Like, I don't look at them and go, oh, wow, fat guy. I only do that when I see someone who is very obviously in an unhealthy state. That is where I stand on this. Other people have their own opinions, but that is where I stand. Number 3. Consider that we might actually like our bodies. Yes, really. Imagine that. Okay, yeah, sure. Some people might like their fat bodies. But honestly, and this is anecdotal, I understand that, but like, most fat people that I've ever known, in fact, nearly 100% of fat people that I've ever known, and in fact, even most people who are not fat, don't like their bodies. Like, a lot of people have issues with their bodies. Like, I feel like this point, like, they're trying to, like, reinforce that, hey, we like being fat. Like, we like our bodies. Like, it feels disingenuous, because I feel like they're trying to talk for people on a big level where they don't really have that authority to do so. I think, like, a lot of people do suffer when they're overweight, and I think that they don't deserve to suffer, but they're suffering for a particular reason, and the reason is because they know that it's not right. And, like, that is basically it. They know it's not a good thing to be this overweight, that it's affecting their health, affecting their ability to walk around and do things in life. And they do resent themselves for that. So yeah, they're not happy with their bodies because they know that they could be exercising more, they could be eating healthier, they could be doing these things to make themselves happier with their bodies, you know. But yeah, some people might just not give a shit and be like, yeah, I love being fat, that's fine. But I just know that the vast majority of people who are fat don't look at it like that. They just don't. And I hate that they're kind of trying to like not address that, like sweep it under the carpet. Number 4, understand that diets don't work. Now, I mean, what are you even supposed to say to that? Like, what are you supposed to say to someone who says diets don't work? Diets do work. Maybe not fad diets, like eat popcorn all the time, like Beyonce did one time, or some shit like that, or maybe the Atkins diet, where you just constantly eat meat. Like, yeah, okay, fad diets are probably not the best thing, but coming up with a like a healthy 3-meal plan diet definitely fucking works. Like, it definitely fucking works. Like, there's, like, my mum went to Slimming World, my sister has, so many people I know have gone on different kinds of diets, they've gone to gyms, they've gone to exercise, they've switched up from being meat eaters to vegans and lost weight, stuff like that. Diets fucking work. Like, the whole reason why people are fat is because they're engaging in a diet that isn't working, right? That is what it really means. Like what? Like you must understand how retarded this, and it only gets more and more retarded. They go from point to point where they're literally contradicting themselves from one point to the next, and it's just fascinating that they even bothered to publish this. Honestly, diets don't work, and also as well, and are the evil child of capitalism and body shaming culture. No, they are not. If diets, okay, if the people, okay, if capitalism is evil, right? They'd want everyone to be fat so that they can capitalize on everybody eating all the fucking time and eating the most unhealthy of foods. That is what evil capitalists would want. They want everyone to be fat to eat all the fucking time so they can make loads of money out of it. They don't want people to get slim. They don't want people to eat less, right? That's working in this logic. If we're going to work in this logic that capitalism is evil and that is what's happening, then no, they would want everyone to be fat, and they would be constantly wanting people to not body shame fat people and want everyone to be fat, which is literally what this article is doing. Right? So they don't even understand their own logic, is what's going on here. Okay, so over 95% of people who lose weight through dieting put the weight back on within 5 years. Now, usually, that is because most of these people have either gone into fad diets, or they have gone into their diets, lost the weight, and then gone back into old eating habits. They haven't stuck with the diet. Very clearly, okay? And obviously, I will add a caveat to say that, of course, a lot of fat people do have eating disorders, and we'll cover that a little bit later. But that is also a part of it. There is a mental struggle for fat people when it comes to food. It is an addiction, and if you want a good example of that, look at Boogie. The YouTuber Boogie, who was on the H3H3 podcast not too long ago, talking about his struggle with weight. And honestly, I would like to hear what he has to say about this article, actually, because I think he would have a lot of things to say about this. But anyway, if diets worked, the diet industry would be financially unstable. Now, the diet industry capitalizes on the fact that people don't understand nutrition. Now, nutrition and diets are kind of in the same ballpark. Now, when I'm saying that diets work, what I mean is understanding nutrition works, okay? Not just random fucking fad diets, right? Now, this is what they're not making that distinction. They're just saying diets in general. They're not saying fad diets, which is actually the problem. Fad diets do not work in a long-term situation. Some of them may work to maybe shift a load of weight in a very short space of time, but they're not healthy and they're not good for you. And like they say, a lot of the time you end up putting that weight back on because they're not a sustainable kind of diet. And yes, people do make money out of this kind of thing because people don't understand how food and nutrition works. However, the word diet is literally just what you eat. So if you are having a healthy diet of 3 meals a day, or eating fruit and vegetables, drinking a lot of water, you're not having hugely sized portions and stuff like that, and it's not completely unhealthy all the time, then you will lose weight. There's no doubt about it. It's fucking scientifically proven. So for them to sit there and say diets don't work, they can go fuck themselves. Right. Learn about the damage that yo-yo dieting does to the body. Right. This is what I'm talking about when they start to contradict themselves. Because they're saying that diets don't work, and over 95% of people lose weight through diet and put the weight back on. That is what yo-yo dieting is, okay? And the only reason that yo-yo dieting even exists in the first place is because people do not keep on with the diets that are not fad diets, but good, actual diets that are helping them. See, my mum has always been big. My mum's always been fat, okay, since I was a child. And in the last couple of years, my mum went to Slimming World and lost, I can't remember how much, maybe like 4 stone or something like that. I don't know how much that is in pounds. Look it up on Google. I can't think off the top of my head. But she lost 4 stone and she's generally kept it off. I think she's put a little bit on here and there. But generally speaking, she has kept to that diet. And for a good few years now, she's kept that weight off. And I suspect she will probably keep it off for the rest of her life. I can't imagine my mum getting bigger now that she's kept to a diet. But my mum yo-yo dieted for a long time, and that's because she didn't keep to the diet. She's actually done Slimming World a few times, but she didn't actually stick with it. But she has done now, and she's all the better for it. And so what this article is not doing is she's going, what people who are friends to fat people need to do is learn about the damage of yo-yo dieting. But they're not saying to fat people, you need to learn about yo-yo dieting. They're saying to us, the people who are not fat, that we need to learn about it, not the fat people themselves. Like, what? Ugh! And they're also saying it does much more damage than happily staying the size you are. Well, it depends on the size that you are, doesn't it? Really? I mean, it's so careless. It's so fucking careless. And we're going to go to some statistics after this as well, once we've finished reading this. So, number 6, stop talking about your diet. If you want to lose weight, fine, you do you. But understand how damaging it is for us to constantly hear how unwanted and unacceptable fat bodies are. Now, if you're a fat person talking to another fat person about how you're losing weight, I'm sorry, but you are very entitled to do that. And if you don't want to hear about it, then don't hear about it. But honestly, it's just... what are you supposed to do in this situation? I don't really get it. Like, what are you supposed to do with yourself if you want to lose weight and you're coming up with a diet for yourself and you're talking about it? Because, I'm not going to lie, fat people talk about food a lot. They do. They talk about it more than most people that I know. I don't talk about food that much. Like, I do on some level if I'm talking about cooking a meal from scratch with somebody and like somebody's coming over and we're going to cook something. But in my day-to-day life, I rarely talk about food. But when I'm with fat people, like, say, some people in my family, or some of my friends that I know, and stuff like that, they talk about food a lot more than other people that I know, okay? So they're going to be talking about their diets. They're going to be talking about it. There's no doubt about it. And honestly, I don't see any reason not to be talking about losing weight if you're bigger. And you know what I mean? Like, there's just... If it is damaging to hear about it, you got to understand, why is it damaging? Why? Like, the only reason it's damaging is because you know you should be losing weight, right? That is the only... It's a shame feeling. It's a shame feeling of going, I should probably be on a diet, but I just don't have the self-control to do so. You know what I mean? Like, that is where it's coming from. And honestly, that is down to the individual. You can't be talking for the whole of fat people here. Anyway, number 7. More specifically, stop talking about your diet at meal times. It can take years to detach the feelings of shame from food, and hearing people talk about sins, cheating, and naughty food while we're literally trying to eat can be massively triggering. Well, okay, yeah, it can be triggering, but you got to understand that, like, people are trying to live their own lives and do things, and, like, okay, yeah, I will agree that, like, it probably is annoying. It probably is annoying to hear all that kind of stuff while you're just trying to carry on pretending that it's okay to be fat. But, like, it's just, like, I just don't... To me, I think that the bigger problem is that you're being triggered by this stuff, rather than that these people are saying this stuff. That to me is the big problem. You shouldn't be triggered by other people trying to lose weight. You know what I mean? The only reason that you would be triggered by other people trying to lose weight is because you know that you should be losing weight too, and that's it. And that's the only thing. And, like, you're just trying to cover that up in this weird ally bullshit. So, number 8, refrain from giving a fat person unsolicited advice about weight loss. Even if it totally worked for you, even if you think you're being helpful, even if that person is related to you, stop this. So now they're trying to say, don't care about people who are obviously having health issues from their obesity. Don't care about them. Don't try and help them lose weight. Don't give them advice, even if it's unsolicited. I know unsolicited advice is annoying. I know it is. And to be honest with you, I probably know that also the fat people that you're giving this advice to may already even actually know this. Of course, they may know these things, but they're not putting them into practice. But the thing is what the underlying message is of this point is to just not give a shit, right? Stop giving a shit about fat people's health. And that to me is really careless. It really, really is. Number 9, don't call yourself fat if you're widely considered to be slim or average sized by most people. I feel so fat today is not equal to living in a fat body every day. Now, of this one, I kind of agree with. It is kind of nauseous when people unironically are like, oh, I feel so fat, and like look in the mirror. Like, it's usually girls, to be honest, but like, they're like, they'll be really slim, and then they'll eat a hamburger, and then they'll just be talking for half an hour about like, oh, I feel really fat now. Oh God, maybe I'm gonna put a stone on, or something like that. Like they go to an extreme, and it's just they're obviously not fat. And honestly, it's usually like attention seeking, or people just have an actual body dysmorphia or something. I don't know, but like, honestly, a lot of the time it is just really obnoxious and annoying when people do that. I mean, I say it as a joke sometimes, like about myself, like, oh my God, I'm just going to be a fat pig today and just eat loads of stuff. And like, yeah, I say stuff like that, but there is a comedy to it. Like, I'm being more metaphorical. Like, I'm not just like, I'm not saying it in a serious way. This one is more to the people that say it seriously, that are really trying to drive it home that they're fat when they're not fat. Like that stuff is really annoying. So to this one point, I agree. Number 10. If you want to compliment a fat person on what they're wearing, avoid saying it's flattering. Flattering means your clothes are hiding the bit of your body that society doesn't like. Just tell them you look great. This one, yeah, I kind of agree with as well. There's no need to like kind of dance around stuff and like try and like hurt people's self-esteem. Like one thing that I don't like is like people being malicious to fat people. Like the one thing I think people should be is realistic to fat people, but there's no need to be malicious. And honestly, fat people sometimes when they dress well, they do look great. I don't care what anyone says. Some fat people look great. There's no like they can work it, you know. So that I have no problem with this one. But I will say though that if fat people are wearing stuff that doesn't make them look great, maybe you should kind of say something. I mean, I'm not saying again be malicious with it, but like it's probably worth saying, hey, maybe you should wear something that kind of accentuates the better parts of you, because then you'll look more attractive, rather than just getting... Like, I've seen pictures of, like, fat people with, like, wearing, like, boob tubes and stuff like that, and, like, they've got their belly hanging out and stuff, and they're like, yeah, body acceptance, woo! Like, and it just looks awful. Like, it looks so bad. And, like, I feel like a lot of the people who enable that kind of behaviour are doing it so they can kind of laugh at them behind their back, and I find it really horrible. Fat people can look great, but honestly, we do have to accept that it is a certain kind of body type, and certain kinds of clothes do help that. There is not much around it. It's the same with, on the other end of the scale, with really skinny people. You know, there are certain... Like, you can't wear, like, a tight tank top and stuff like that as a skinny person, because you just look... You don't look right. And, you know, it's just kind of how it is. We all know these things. We just are trying hard not to accept them for some reason. When really, I just think accepting reality is probably the better way to go. 11. Watch out for pity in your response to fat people. We don't need your pity. We need your acceptance and your action to help other thin people get there too. And this one, again, I kind of actually do kind of agree with this one as well. Like, you know, I don't have pity for fat people, like, at all. And I do believe that, like, yeah, you know, going down this road of being like, oh, the poor fat people, you know, but it's kind of weird because this article is kind of like that. This article is kind of like, trying to empower fat people, but it's kind of coming from a pitying angle. I mean, I guess the person who might be writing it might be fat. I'm not really sure, but like, I don't know. It's just odd. It's an odd collection of points to make. But in a general sense, I will say that like, yeah, I think that like you don't just randomly, I don't randomly pity anyone, because I think it's just silly. I think pity is a very condescending. It's a very condescending emotion, and I rarely ever feel it, to be honest, and I rarely ever give it. I usually try and sympathise or empathise as much as possible with people, where I can, because sometimes it's difficult. Number 12, stop fetishising fat bodies. So this is another thing, right? Okay, this is where we're going to get into the contradictions, but let's read this one. Stop fetishising fat bodies. Don't expect fat folk to be grateful because you deem them fuckable. We're people. Now, and then the next point, don't desexualise us either. Fat people are plenty hot and having great sex, thank you very much. All shapes and sizes of people have sex. There's nothing you can do about that, and it's weird and telling if you're put out by it. It's so stupid. Like, so on one hand you can't fetishise fat people, so you can't have fat people as a kind of sexual preference if you're kind of into bigger people, and that's just kind of your deal, that's your bag, that's something that you're into. But then if you desexualise people and go, I'm not really into fat people, they don't really do it for me, then both of those things are bad. Both of those things are bad. Like, what the fuck? What the fuck? I say preferences are fine. You can do both. I'm saying it's fine. You can fetishise fat people, because obviously fat people need love too. Of course they do. And if you're into that kind of thing, you go for it. I've had sex with fat people. Some fat people are great in bed. There's no doubt about it. Like there's. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm into the bigger woman here and there. You know, I have my preferences on that as well. But there it is. It's just as it just is what it is. Like, everyone has their own thing. But at the same time, I know I don't like completely morbidly obese women either, so I desexualise them, if that's what you want to call it, or I have a preference on it. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. I also have a preference against extremely skinny girls that are, like, anorexic. That's not good. It makes me go, ugh, inside. You know what I mean? Like, it's not good either. Like, there's two... They act like humans can't decide for themselves. Like, we've got to decide for you how to feel about everything. No, people decide for themselves. And part of the reason why fat people feel the way they feel about themselves and stuff like that is not just because of how other people treat them, but it's how, when they look at themselves, they know. They do know. They can see reality. So anyway... And so, because obviously you can sexualise yourself, sorry, just to add to that point, you can kind of sexualise yourself. Like, when you look in the mirror, sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I go, nah, not looking too good today. Sometimes I look in the mirror and I go, hey, you're looking pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, and obviously, fat people can see that too, they can do that too, they can judge for themselves. So, you know what I mean? They know what they would find attractive, and that is where it's coming from. And it's just not acknowledged at all. It's not acknowledged. Anyway, number 14. Understand that fat women get harassed and assaulted too. Even if fat bodies don't do it for you, remember that sexual assault is about power, not attraction. Now, that statement I have a little bit of a problem with, but that's probably for another video. But the fear of being ridiculed or disbelieved for speaking about assault is often heightened for fat women. Now, okay, I don't know about that one, and honestly, no matter who you are, big or small, whatever you are, if you are assaulted... If you are sexually assaulted in any kind of way, go to the police straight away. Don't sit around being scared of being ridiculed and all that stuff, because when you are sitting around waiting for weeks and weeks, years and years, or whatever it is, and then you come out later on, that's when you're going to get ridiculed. When it happens to you, you go straight away. You go straight away, because that is the only time that you're more likely to be believed. And that's it. That is it. And even if you are ridiculed and whatever... Doesn't matter, but you should do it. If you truly believe it, do it. And I do understand that fat women get harassed and assaulted too. I didn't even think that they wouldn't. So to add that point in there, I don't know, it's a bit weird to me. But it's one I kind of agree to, I guess. I don't know if you can agree to that, it just seems obvious. Like, all these things happen to all different kinds of people. It happens to men too. Happens to all kinds of people all the time, and it's not good. So that's one of the points that I can kind of deal with. So what are points that we've agreed with so far? We've got like maybe 4 or 5. Yeah, okay, but largely not doing so well. Number 15, remember that eating disorders affect fat people too. Now, I don't understand why nobody would even think that. Like, of course, eating disorders affect fat people. Like, it's one of the main things that probably affect fat people, is that they have an eating disorder. So, you know, it's... You know, there's nothing against that. Again, another point that I agree to. Eating disorders do affect fat people. Of course they do. But at the same time, eating disorders are not incurable, and they are within that person's ability to control and deal with. I know it seems out of control because it's obvious, because it's a disorder. It's an extreme side of oneself. It's like an addiction. So, like, you know, whether it's an addiction to not eating or eating too much, they're both kind of addictions in a way. There's these kinds of endorphins going on that are backing it up, but they can be dealt with the right kind of treatments. It's just people going out of their way to get those treatments. Now, this is where we're getting into some of the another contradiction, is because before all this, at the beginning, they were saying, what were they saying now? That diets don't work and all the rest of it, and they were kind of going against all that. But then they're saying that eating disorders affect fat people, and it's just like, okay, well, what is it then? Are people just like, diets don't work and whatever? Like, I don't know. It just seems like nonsensical. Like, if an eating disorder is affecting somebody, then you don't go around going like, oh, well, diets don't work, because a diet is exactly what is going to help somebody with an eating disorder. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's so frustrating, and like, for them to publish this is so careless. It's like them publishing an article just being like, here are all the health benefits of heroin. Let's do loads of heroin. Oh, don't listen to anybody who says that you have a problem. Just inject that shit anyway. You know what I mean? It's just like, but then also going on to say, heroin addicts have mental health problems. It's like, wait a minute. What are you trying to say? Number 16. Understand that fat and unhealthy are not the same thing. Actually, yes, they are. Well, it depends on what you mean, because your definition of fat, if you mean literal, say, fat in foods, or certain kinds of fats that are found in foods, are not necessarily unhealthy, and you should actually have a healthy intake of certain fats. That is a nutritional fact. Okay? However, the fat in the context of this article, meaning obese and morbidly obese, is unhealthy. That is a scientific fact. Like and we'll go into those facts later, but it is. They go hand in hand. We all know this. Even skinnier people like me, who maybe have an unhealthy lifestyle, who gain fat inside their body, like on their organs and stuff like that. Fat in of itself, if you have an excess of it, even if you're slim and you have fat in excess on your organs and stuff like that, and on your heart, that is unhealthy. So yes, fat in excess of any kind, whether you're slim or you can see it and you're morbidly obese, that is unhealthy. So yeah, they're completely, you know what I mean? They're going from one thing to another. Eating disorders affect fat people too. Fat is not unhealthy. Like, what? What do you mean? 17. Stop commenting on others' weight under the guise of concern about their medical health. Are you my doctor? No. Your opinion isn't necessary here. Okay. Like, again, it's just another point that they had earlier where it's just like, don't care about people's health. Don't care. Like, if I was, even as a slim person, like, if I was looking run down and I was just looking like shit, and I was going on like that for a long time, I wasn't looking after my hygiene and stuff like that, and people were coming up to me and just going, are you okay? Like, do you need help? And stuff like that. Maybe you should get a shower. Like, have you been looking after yourself? Blah, 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 blah. Like, that would be good. They should do that. Like, I wouldn't say, oh yeah, I'm a depressed person. Don't try and help me. Like, it's just so stupid. It's so stupid. Right, 18. Never, ever, ever, ever pressure your partner to lose weight. Believing in bodily autonomy for your partner extends to supporting them in the choices they make about their body, shape and size. So even if they decide to put on 10 stone and become morbidly obese, you just have to sit there and go, yeah, that's alright. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about broadly? Oh, it's just so... I feel like I'm having an aneurysm. Like, never, ever, ever pressure your partner to lose weight. Like, okay, don't just, like, randomly do it. Don't just be like, hey, you need to lose weight. You put on 3 pounds recently. Fuck you, you need to lose some weight. No, it's no problem with people having some fluctuations in body weight. We're all human. We all have those things. But if somebody's obviously going down the road of just, like, consistently year after year, just putting on stone after stone, like, yeah, maybe you should say something about it. If you love that person, don't let them have a fucking heart attack. You know what I mean? Don't let them fucking kill themselves with food. Jesus Christ. 19. If you care that much about what other people eat, donate your time and money to organisations that campaign for affordable, nutritional food in poor communities. Okay, on that aspect, I would agree to that. But guess what? The people who have those organisations who campaign for affordable and nutritional food in poor communities usually campaign for good nutrition and for a lack of obesity. So, you know, you're kind of at odds with them, aren't you, a little bit there? 20. Critically examine the information you're given about fatness. Investigate who is sharing the material and question what they might have to gain from it. Who gains from people losing weight? Who gains? Really? Well, I mean, I guess society at large kind of gains. I mean, especially in the UK with healthcare, I mean, a lot of people do end up having a lot more problems in the NHS. What part of the reason why the NHS is kind of fucked is because over 50% of people in the UK are obese now, and that obviously leads to a lot of problems, health complications. So 21. But obviously, there is, you have to wonder sometimes, like, what they have to gain. Maybe some of the gains aren't actually as nefarious as you think they are. Maybe the gains are actually beneficial to society and you as an individual. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Why? Why are you not acknowledging that? 21. Erase the words obesity epidemic from your vocabulary. Demonisation of fat bodies is a classic scapegoating tool employed by governments. When they talk about the obesity epidemic, they're using coded language to get you to blame systematic societal problems, poverty, crime, and climate change on poor communities and communities of colour. You're smarter than that. There's so much wrong with this point. Obesity epidemic. Okay, so when over 50% of a population is obese, and this is an American article, so there's even more than that. It's over 60%. It might even be 70%. No, I don't think it's that much, but like, I think it's like over 60% in America of people are obese. That is an epidemic. So if 60% of people, it wouldn't even have to be 60% of people. Even if, say, 10% of people in the world, in America or the UK got AIDS, so let's say 65 million, say 10% of people, that's 6.5 million people got AIDS in the UK, that would be an epidemic, okay? That would be an epidemic. Over 50% of people in the UK being obese, that is an epidemic. That is literally the definition of the fucking word, right? So, and it's not a shaming thing, it's an observation. It's a fucking, it's not a scapegoating thing. I don't know what you fucking mean by scapegoating. It's an observation of reality. A scapegoat would mean it's not real. Like, it's not happening. It is happening. What the fuck are you talking about? And they're saying that societal problems are what causes people to be fat. However, when you get into a point where over 50% of people are fat, that is not because they're poor. That is not because of societal problems, crime and stuff like that. Because guess what? Not 50% of the country is poor. In fact, it's a minority of people that are in the working class and are poor. Like, in fact, the standards of poor in this country are not the same as the standards of poor globally. Like, globally, we're in the 1%. Even the poor in this country are in the 1% of people in the world that benefit from things. So, like, poverty does not necessarily make you fat, right? In fact, poverty is probably one of the reasons as to why I am slim. Really. Crime is not what makes people fat. I don't understand how you can make that leap. How? Just how? I don't understand. Climate change, making people fat. Oh my god, there's a hole in the ozone layer. Let's eat more cake. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's nothing to back this up. They've got no study. I haven't looked into this, but I feel I can say with a lot of confidence, I feel I can say none. I think the only one that could possibly have had studies that correlate with obesity is poverty, but the other ones is completely bullshit. On poor communities and communities of colour, you're smarter than that. How about unhealthy diets in communities of colour? Because I know what they mean. They mean black people in America. That's what they mean. They mean black people in America often have higher obesity rates. And let's face it, there's a lot of fried food and a lot of fast food being ingested in those communities that doesn't need to be eaten. Let's face it. And that is similar with poor communities. It's similar with middle class families. A lot of people can't be asked to cook for their kids. They just go out and buy food. It's usually fast food, and they get fat kids, or they give them too many sweets and stuff like that. It is not a poor thing. It's not just a poor thing. A lot of middle class people are fat too. In fact, I would even say potentially more middle class people are fat than fucking working class people. Jesus. Anyway, 22. Learn about the medical community. Learn about how the medical community treats fat bodies. As one example of very many, fat people are routinely denied kidney transplants unless they lose weight, even though they experience the same level of success with their donor kidneys as thin people do. We are consistently disbelieved and misdiagnosed because doctors cannot see past our fatness. We are often denied health insurance. I think partly the reason is because of when you're fat, you're opening yourself up to a lot of diseases. You're opening yourself up to a lot of health issues. So, for instance, if you already have cancer and you apply to get health insurance, you're actually denied health insurance because it's usually. I think maybe there are some insurances out there that'll still take you, but maybe they just have different ways of doing it. I don't know how it works in America really, but what I can tell is, and how insurance works over in the UK is, they look at your pre-existing stuff, and if fatness is one of them, even if smoking is one of them, if you're smoking, you can potentially be denied because it's something you can control. You can say, hey, yeah, I know you're addicted to smoking, and maybe you have some kind of mental crutch for it, but if you don't stop smoking, either your insurance is going to be really high, or we're just not even going to give you insurance in the first place because you can't control yourself. And it's the same thing with obesity. That's what they're kind of doing. I'm not trying to say it's right or wrong, but I mean they're just not really addressing the issue properly here to have a genuine discussion about it. And I'm just saying that is where that is coming from. But also as well, the kidney transplants things. I've never heard of that before. But I mean, if there is a unique thing to fatness that affects kidneys. As in, like, so for instance, because if you had a transplant, because obviously you just get a kidney. Oh, I think that might be what it is because the reason that they're having a kidney transplant in the first place is probably due to their fatness. So if you're just going to have a transplant and then continue to be that kind of fat person and damage the kidney that you've received, then it's kind of a pointless endeavour, isn't it? It's kind of like you've done a transplant for no reason when it could have been given to somebody who's going to really benefit from that transplant. So yeah, they may take the kidney, they may have the same level of success, as in like they take it successfully and it isn't rejected. But if you're just going to have the same lifestyle, and part of the reason why you even needed a kidney transplant in the first place was because you're just so overweight, it is taking its toll on your body, that, like, yeah, I can see why they would refuse the kidney transplant and tell you to lose weight first, so that if you have a healthy lifestyle, they can go, okay, now we're happy to give you the transplant because it's actually going to be beneficial in the long run for you. Number 23, while you're at it, read up on how BMI has been widely debunked as an inaccurate and misleading measure of health. How about you read up on fucking health in general? Because it seems like you have no fucking clue. Read on BMI. Yeah, okay, I've heard this before as well, that BMI is largely like a kind of loose, it's a very loose thing. It can be good for some things, but it shouldn't be the be-all and end-all. And really, you just need to be looking at your weight and your daily intakes and stuff like that. Like, your BMI is really more to have a look at... it's not a measure of health. It's more to look at, like, where you should be looking at for your health. So, for instance, if you're 5'5" and 300 pounds, then you're going to have a different... It's going to be different for you, different portions, different ways, different types of exercises and stuff like that for you to get healthy than somebody who is 6'6" and weighs 195 pounds for them to get healthy and eat the right portions and etc. etc. That is what BMI is for, is to kind of get a gauge on what height you're at, where you stand on that body mass index, so they can cater a particular diet to you and your health. So obviously they don't actually understand. Like, if you're just using BMI as the sole thing, then yeah, that's not right either. But they obviously haven't even bothered to look at that, so, you know, fuck them. 24. If you're a doctor, stop prescribing weight loss as a remedy. I would say if you're not a doctor, don't give advice to doctors. How about that? If you're a doctor, don't give advice to doctors who have gone through medical school for over 5 to 6 years to get a PhD, alright? Don't sit there as a fucking little journalist bullshitter who reads these fucking little fucking studies to back up your own opinion. Don't fucking tell a doctor what to do, okay? Fucking use your brain. Got depression? Try losing some weight. Got heartburn? Go on a diet. Broken toe? Maybe cut down on the takeout. Ha! So funny. Come on, this is ridiculous. Do your job better. This is obviously way over the top. Like, you know, but obviously there's no word of a lie. Like, if your depression is linked to your overweightness, it's a no fucking brainer, isn't it? It's a no fucking brainer. No fucking brainer! I don't know why I should have to repeat myself. It's just so fucking obvious. It's just ridiculous. 25. Learn to criticise people without referencing their weight. There are enough things to criticise Trump for. It's like, we just have to get Trump in here somehow. There are enough things to criticise Trump for without bringing his body into it. Making jokes about his weight doesn't hurt him. It hurts the nice everyday fat person who's just trying to get on with their life. I do remember this happening where, when Trump got into office, the same people who were being like, nobody should body shame, were then calling Trump like a fat bastard and stuff. And it was really hilarious to see, because it really highlights the double standards that a lot of these people employ, and it's just exactly why I fell off the progressive bandwagon, is because a lot of their loops in logic, they never really apply it properly. It's all just to make themselves look good. They don't actually give a shit. Like, that is the thing. This whole thing, this person who claims to care about fat people has written this article, all these points. They don't actually care about fat people. They really don't. Like, and you can tell. It really tells, because they're not addressing anything substantial or real that fat people have to go through in order to actually find themselves in a better position. They're just trying to sweep everything under the carpet, and guess what? That doesn't work. So, But I will kind of agree though that like you should just criticize people without referencing their weight. In fact, you shouldn't really resort to ad hominems in general. Really, when you're criticizing people, I've probably resorted to it a little bit here, but I am also addressing the main points, point by point, and I'm giving it point by point. I'm giving them a blow by blow. I'm giving them a blow by blow assessment. So, like, but fundamentally, yeah, I do agree. You shouldn't really jump to, oh, you fat bitch, like when somebody criticizes you, or if you want to criticize them, because it's not really a criticism. If they're a bitch, figure out why they're a bitch. Don't just generally say they're a bitch, because it's not really, it's not specific enough, and it just kind of makes you sound like a cunt. Okay, 26. Make sure your allyship extends to all fat people, not just small fat folks, not just white fat folks, and not just able-bodied fat folks. Like, what do you mean, allyship? I don't really understand what you mean here. Like, and also as well, if you're going to say allyship, like, would you have allyship for Trump? Like, I don't understand what you mean. Like, what do you mean? They don't really describe what allyship is, and they just kind of expect you to understand. And like, I guess it's just following all these points, but like, I don't know. It's just weird. 27. Know that skinny shaming is not a thing. Okay, I'm going to give you a little story. When I was a kid, I used to get bullied for being skinny by the bigger lads. I used to get started on for the US people. That means people would try and start fights with me, like physical fights, and I would be bullied for it because they would see me as weaker. Also, as well, there is a thing in society where people do. Like the other day I was in work and I had to move the glass tray, which has all these glasses on it, and it can be kind of heavy. But I'm quite slim, as you can see. But I'm not strong. Like, I do push-ups, I do stuff to kind of stay relatively in shape. I'm not completely in shape, but I'm not weak either. And I can lift this tray. And this girl said to me, like, "Do you reckon you can move the tray for me? Will you be okay doing that?" Thinking that I might have trouble moving this tray. Like, people, it does happen, and like for them to, obviously they just don't know it and haven't experienced it. And I'm not going to say it's as bad, but I will say it is a thing. They're saying it is not a thing. I'm saying it is a thing. And as much as it's not right to be malicious or overly insensitive to fat people, at the same time, if you're going to go down that road, you cannot suddenly just start... I mean, if you're going to go down the road that Broadly's going, you can't suddenly just start saying, like, skinny shaming is not a thing. You can't suddenly start then excluding people. And I'm going to say that it is a thing. And I think people who are malicious to skinny people and stuff like that, because especially, this is more of a problem for men as well. I think the person who wrote this was probably a woman, but for men, this is more of a problem because a lot of men do look down on skinnier guys and stuff like that. And I think it is a bit of bullshit, personally. But it's not something that I need to write a fucking 51-point article about either, because empowerment comes from inside. It doesn't come from articles like this. And I empower myself, and I do things to try and work with my own body shape and my own frame to make myself feel better about myself. I don't need all this bullshit. And the sooner that people realise that they can do that, that's all the more power to them. But anyway, let's get into it. Ridiculing someone for being too slim is unacceptable, but it comes from a very different place than fat phobia. Yeah, I guess, but it is two sides to the same coin. Thinness is seen as desirable by society and people. Now, this is where you're getting things wrong, because slimness, yeah, okay, I would say that, yeah, it kind of is. Like, people who fit a certain kind of bracket of healthy slimness, yeah, it is desirable by society. However, anorexic people and people who look like skeletons, that makes people physically retch. Like, people get really, really like, oh, excuse me. They do get like, oh, like, it's not right. Like, it doesn't look good. It's not a good thing. People see it. It's like malnutrition. It makes you. It hurts to look at it. It hurts. Particularly women are attacked only when their size begins to shine a light on the toxic fetishization of thinness. See, I don't think it's a fetishization of thinness. Although I do think that for a time, I don't think this exists as much as it used to. But I remember a time when I was maybe roughly about 12 to 18. There was this whole period where like super thin models were like a big deal. And like, yeah, I will say that at that point, I think it was a bit of a toxic fetishization because a lot of people were having big problems with anorexia and stuff like that. And I think it was a big problem then. But in media now, I see like all different kind of body types in adverts and stuff like that. And I will say that that is a good move. Like, you know, a lot of people have a problem with that, like, oh, they're trying to push fatness and stuff like that. But I don't see a lot of particularly really obese people. It's usually more like the curvy side of things and stuff. But I'm well in for that. Like, I think they're really tapping in and realising that people don't just want fat people. People like women of all different shapes and sizes, and that should be more acceptable. And I do agree to that on some level. What I don't agree to is encouraging morbid obesity. That is where I'm drawing the line. So, you know, yeah. But I will say that generally where the thinness, desirable thinness thing comes from, it's just more of a thing to do with genes. Like a slim, healthy person, male or female, they tend to give off... It just basically shows that they have good genes, is what it is. An overly fat person is unhealthy, and that gives off the vibe of unhealthy genes. So if you have a child with that person, you may end up having a fat child or a deficient child. And realistically, who wants that? Nobody sits down and goes, yeah, I want a child who has a brain deficiency. Nobody thinks like that. Some people might accept it and deal with it, and that's fine. They're brave people who do that. But realistically, nobody actually wants that. And that is where this comes from. And it's a similar thing with the overly thin, the anorexic people. It's obviously unhealthy. And that is a defect, and people acknowledge that. So yeah. Let's try and make this a little quicker, because a lot of these points, I mean, there's a lot of them, and you know, yeah. Understand the link. Okay, oh my god, understand the link between capitalism and fat phobia. For instance, the company. I mean, I've already been over this, but for instance, the companies that profit from hard marketing of indulgent foods at Christmas are often the same ones selling diet products in the new year. Yet they sell diet products because people don't realise how... Number one, people need to gain their own self-control. That's number one. And also as well, they're just... Of course, capitalism is going to capitalise on people not understanding nutrition and not understanding that certain fats are actually healthy. So, like, the diet products are actually worse for people, and a lot of the people that... a lot of the reason, actually, that people have... why we've got this fat epidemic is because a lot of people are giving in to these diet products and buying diet mayonnaise and diet this, that, and the other thing, and they think they can eat loads of it because it's diet, and they think it's okay to do that. Diet sodas and all this stuff. But actually... they're just as bad, if not worse, for people than just having a moderate amount of regular stuff that has regular fats in it. People will overindulge in diet products because they think that's better, and that makes it a lot worse. And they have the things that they put into diet foods to make them diet, to extract those fats, are really, really unhealthy. Really unhealthy. And honestly... what you need for your diet is just grains, good fruits and vegetables, some fish, and maybe some red meat or white meat, like just for some protein. But again, don't overindulge in those either. Take in all these things in moderate levels, and you'll be fine. But yeah, it's... oh Sometimes you're going to sit next to a fat person on a plane. You'll cope. I mean, yeah, I don't understand why that's even a point. Find out about the physical pain enjoyed by not only fat people on planes, but on roller coasters and blah blah blah. So before they were going on like, oh, being fat is so good, and don't even question people on it, and don't even fucking don't care, don't have concern for them. And now you're saying find out about the physical pain that they endure. Like, it's all over the place, this article. It's all over the place. Why are they scrimping on their seat sizes and all this stuff? Like, what are you on about? What are you on about? They can only contribute to what the average... They go from average weights. Because, guess what? It's not just fat people in the world. Also, make sure your guest towels are the biggest size that they have in the shop. I'm going to buy whatever fucking towels I need, okay? And if somebody else... Don't make me scoot around your house in a towel that leaves me half naked. That's such an entitled fucking attitude. If you're showering at my house, you're going to use whatever fucking towel you're fucking giving me. And if you have to scoot around the house half naked, that's your problem, not my problem, okay? I'm sorry, but that is just a really entitled attitude, and it kind of speaks to the kind of attitude that progressives have anyway. 33. Learn about the pay gap and employment bias faced by fat people. Yes, this is a very real thing. Now, I actually will say that on average, there probably is an employment bias against fat people because a lot of jobs require people to move around. They do take up space. Like if you're working behind a bar and there's only so much space to get around people to go and make drinks and get to the till and stuff like that, and you've got bigger people there that are in the way, it is actually a concern. There is a bias, and again, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I can understand where it's coming from, because if you need somebody to climb up a ladder 20, 30 times a day, and they're morbidly obese, and they can't do it because of their knees, well, guess what? You're probably not going to hire them. You know what I mean? And again, how can you really blame an employer? They have needs too. And of course they're going to give that job to the person who's going to be able to do it best. Like, you can't just say... Like, if you ran a job... I'm speaking to the progressives now. If you were an employer and you had a job that needed to be filled, and you filled it with a fat person who couldn't do the job properly, then you would, of course... You would probably reconsider hiring them. You know, there's no bones about it. 34. Stop assuming fat people are lazy. Catch yourself with that bias when it creeps into your mind. Now, okay, I kind of half agree with this one because I don't think fat people are just inherently lazy with everything they do. I think it's more that, like, the misconception is they are lazy with their weight and weight loss. That is really what it is. And that is what people mean when they say it. And fundamentally, I don't think they're wrong. I don't think that they are wrong when they say that. So, and I know that from experience with my family. I know that fundamentally a lot of the reasons why people in my family had weight issues for a long time, and then now they haven't, is because for a long time they were being lazy about it. And now they're not being lazy about it. And that is the truth of it. So, put your money into art that showcases fat people as romantic leads. Shallow Hal, anyone? But she's saying that, like, I mean, I'm not really against it. I don't really mind having overweight people as leads and stuff. I mean, overweight people are still in the world and in society, so I don't know. I guess I'm not really against this one. It's more like just making it an agenda, though. Like, making it a kind of agenda to do. Like, that seems a bit weird. But I'm not really against having, like... Because, I mean, to me, fat people can still be attractive and stuff. To me, it's more like, make them attractive. Because, honestly, and I know... I don't know, I'm probably going to catch some heat for this, but I kind of don't really want ridiculously ugly people in the leads, because it's a fantasy. It's all a big fantasy, is the world of art and stuff like, well, maybe not art, but like movies and stuff like that. And yeah, you know, if you're going to cast leads and stuff, I still want them to be kind of attractive on a level. But like, as long as they're still kind of attractive, like, I don't really care if they're a bit overweight or a bit chunky or whatever. But to be honest with you, like, being an actor, being in that world, it's going to be very difficult to make that happen realistically. Just because of the kinds of values that they have in that world. And unless you're just gonna, unless fat people are gonna make their own films for fat people like that, you're really gonna have a tough time making that happen. But okay. 36. Call out your favourite authors when they write about fat characters as a shortcut to make you dislike them. I'm looking at you, J.K. Rowling. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of. I mean, it depends, because it depends if the fatness is being used as a metaphor for their greediness, or if they are just arbitrarily fat and it is a way of making them unlikable. But I'm not going to lie, I had this discussion not long ago with somebody, and I said that, like, when somebody's like a bit of a bitch, or somebody's just a bit of a dickhead or whatever, it does make it worse when they are fat for some reason, and I don't know why. Again, I have nothing more to say about that, but like, when somebody's fat and they are a bit of a prick, like, for some reason it just makes it worse, and I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why that is. Maybe a psychologist can help me with that one. I don't know. But yeah, call out your favourite comedian when they resort to fat-phobic jokes. Depends if they're funny or not. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. If they're funny, they're funny. If they're just arbitrarily picking on fat people, yeah, it can be a little boring, I have to say. And actors wearing fat suits for comedic effect, absolutely nope. I mean, honestly, I actually don't care. I actually don't care about that. I think that's fine. 39. Read critical thinking about fatness by fat writers. These people and loads more do great work pulling apart the common misconceptions about fatness. They're not just doing that work for fat folks, thin people need to read it too. I mean, I feel like you could just get enough of that just being around fat people. I don't think you really need to read all that shit. I mean, they're asking you to go to the fucking library to understand all this shit. I don't think you need to do that. Fund critical analysis through Patreon, crowdfunding sites, and direct donations to research institutes. There's hardly any cash in fat research. I wonder why. Actually, that's because a lot of health places already do that. They already know the health implications about fatness. Never forget that fat phobia has its roots in racism and what. Now this one fucking blew my mind. Never forget that fat phobia has its roots in racism and white supremacy. In the early 1800s, colonialists... It's always colonialists! Always! Constantly! Scientists use fatness as one of the markers for social hierarchies, with fatness as one of the uncivilized characteristics attributed to the black and indigenous people placed at the bottom of this scale. Now, this is something I don't understand, because in the 1800s, when slavery was going on, how many fat black and indigenous people were there? Because I'm thinking there probably wouldn't have been that many. And also, I'm also thinking that fat cats, like, you know, the richer people, maybe a little on the chunky side during this time. So I'm not really understanding where this is coming from. I don't like, because I clicked on this link to see where this was coming from, and it was this book that was basically taking things from postcards and random pamphlets and stuff. And I just thought, that is not really a good marker of, like, an actual historical thing. Like, one postcard that may be remarking at, like, a fat black person or something like that. Yeah, it's not good. It's not nice. But I don't know if that's indicative of a huge trend in things. Like, I don't know. Like, it just seems a little, like, kind of clutching at straws a little bit. Like, I study history, honestly. I'm not a historian, but I study history more than the average person. I listen to a lot of different history podcasts, and I read up on stuff. I use the encyclopedias on the internet and stuff like that, like the National Encyclopedia and stuff like that. They read up about different societies and different stuff. And honestly, I'm really not convinced by this one. From what I know of stuff, I'm not convinced about this. I'm really not. I will say that colonial scientists were completely batshit crazy at the time, and that's because a lot of the time they were still conforming to a lot of religious ideas. You know, they still thought a lot of really stupid bullshit in that time. They used to measure people's heads to figure out if they were criminals or not. You know what I mean? It's just really stupid stuff that has been completely debunked by science now. I mean, but I don't know if it has its roots in it. I think honestly, people, the gluttonous person who is overly indulgent has always been characterized as bad. Whether they're in the upper class or the lower class, it doesn't really matter. They've always been treated like that, and that's because gluttony is just kind of repugnant. Like there's no way to beat around that bush, and I think people just know it intrinsically because it speaks to the genes. It's the pheromone thing. You don't need to really understand it scientifically, although there is a scientific explanation. But I think before even that scientific explanation came along, people recognised it because it is just intrinsically known. Like when you see people in famine and they're all skinny and horrible, you know that is bad just as much as when you look at fat people who are ridiculously fat. You know that is bad too. Like it's just, you just know it. You don't need science to tell you that. You just know it. If you have children, be cognizant of how you talk about food around them. Many women in particular cite comments from their mothers as instigating factors in their shame around food. Teach your kids that their and others' bodies are something to apologise for. I wouldn't say that your body has to be something you apologise for. Like I will say that, but like I don't even know how that happens. They don't really give any proper examples. But I mean, if that is the case, like, you know, yeah, then I guess that's fine. You know, yeah, be careful about how you speak about food with kids, I suppose. But I would just say, just like, instead of being cognizant about how you talk about food, be cognizant of the food that you're actually giving your children. That's probably better than that. Understand that there are different kinds of fat bodies. We've already been through this. There are different kinds of fat bodies, and it's all kind of subjective. Yeah, we know. Listen to the stories of fat people. We will experience problems in our daily lives that you won't know anything about. Some of this may sound alien or unlikely to you, but believe these stories and let them inform you how you treat people. I hate this narrative. I'm not saying that you shouldn't believe people just generally, because, you know, I don't believe in just being like mistrustful of people. But I also don't believe in just being completely trusting of every single thing that everybody says all the fucking time. I don't believe in all women. I don't believe in all fat people. I don't believe in all minorities. I don't believe in all that shit because it's not real. It's not real to just arbitrarily believe everybody. It's bullshit, and all it is we're relying on you having a guilt complex or a victim complex so that you'll just believe everything we say. That is a very, very manipulative standpoint to have, to try and convince people to just believe everyone arbitrarily. Watch out for people that want you to do that, because that, to me, are the type of people that want you to believe lies, essentially. So yeah, always watch out for people who want you to be like that. Telling people we could just lose weight is not okay. Heard of victim blaming? Yeah, okay. You can't in one breath be like, we're happy about our bodies and we don't care about being fat, and then say, oh, you could just lose weight, and then pretend to be a victim of your own fatness. How are you a victim of your own fatness if fatness isn't a problem, which is what this whole article is about? So what are you on about? You're not a victim then, are you? So how are we victim blaming then? This is what I mean. They don't understand their own logic. They never do, because there's too much gymnastics that they're doing because they're not accepting reality. So, okay. Call out your friends, family members and co-workers when they fat shame people in front of you. Remember that your silence gives them permission to keep doing this? It depends, honestly. It's hard because we all have our opinions about people who are overweight. Honestly, I'm really not about being malicious to fat people. But at the same time, there is an attitude in fat people where they want to, and it's kind of highlighted by this article, where they basically want to have their cake and eat it, and be fat and have no criticism because of it. And there is just, there is some fat people who just don't help themselves. And I honestly do think, and they want to whine about it, but then also not help themselves at the same time. And those kinds of people, they are kind of detestable. They really are. So, number 47, don't expect every fat person to respond the same way to harassment. Fat positivity is complex. It involves years of undoing internalized shame and often the misogyny, racism, classism, and ableism that is linked to that too. Some days your fat friend will be angry and ready to take on the world. Other days she'll feel shit and sad about it. Why she? Why she'll feel shit and sad about it? Okay. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fine. We all have ups and downs. Okay. Yeah, fat complicity. And obviously they're not gonna respond the same way. Not everyone's gonna respond the same way. It just seems very arbitrary to say that. I think you could say that about literally any topic, really. Don't leave it to fat folk to call out fat shaming. The emotional labour of defending yourself is exhausting. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can see it's making me tired. Yeah, I mean, on some level, yeah. I mean, if somebody was just being straight up a cunt to some fat person that I knew, like if I knew a fat person, somebody came over and just said, "Hey up, you fat bitch," unless it was like quite obviously a joke and it was taken quite well. If they were just being malicious and just being a cunt, like I'd probably be one of the first people to turn around and be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to?" Like, because there's just no need for it. There is no need for it. Like, there really isn't. And I would easily, like, if people wanted to fight about it, I'd easily fight about it. Because, like, there's no need to be a cunt to people. Report fat phobia on online platforms. Most of us need to do this if we want Facebook and Twitter to take it seriously. Again, if they are being malicious and just being really fucking horrible, yeah, report them. Because that is just harassment in general anyway, isn't it? Doesn't matter what it's about, they're just being harassing and malicious. There's no need for that. However, if people are actually... Because a lot of this stuff that they've said before, like, how are we supposed to differentiate what is fat phobia or not? I mean, like, just just saying, hey, maybe it's not good to be fat, can be seen as fat phobia on these online platforms. So how are you supposed to know, like, what is the correct discourse when it seems like anything can be an infringement on that? It's just, this is what I mean, like, they don't really set out a good guideline. They're saying that these are 51 points on how to make the world less hostile for fat people, but really, it's not. It's really not, because it's creating more of a division, because now more people are second-guessing what they might have to do around fat people, what might they have to say, and they're also saying that they shouldn't even care about fat people and speak about their health and stuff. I don't know, it's just all over the place. What are you supposed to do with it? But yeah, okay. Report people who are malicious, though. I'll give them that a little bit, okay. Okay, sometimes you're going to accidentally assume that someone is pregnant. Oh, God! I mean, honestly, that is just a faux pas where you're just like, oh, shit. And the thing they say here, take the lead of the person that you've affected. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of just how socially awkward things happen. So, like, you go, oh, wow, I didn't know you were pregnant. Or something like that. And just go, oh, no, I've just put on a bit of weight. And you're just like, oh, shit, sorry, didn't mean to say that. That's fine to me. Or if somebody even takes it as a joke and just like, no, I'm just fat. And you're just like, oh, right, okay, when's it due? You can... It depends. Yeah, you do take the lead. You take the lead of the person, but that's again, it's speaking to something that they haven't addressed here. Like, some people view their fatness in different ways. Some people are more accepting of their bodies, some people aren't. But largely, I think that a lot of people aren't really that into it, you know, which is why this pregnant thing is actually a deal in the first place, because people didn't think of themselves as being having a problem if they were fat. They wouldn't really take that. They wouldn't take that badly, but a lot of people do take that badly. So, and lastly, never forget that you're not advocating for fat women and non-binary. What? Wait. Why non-binary people? What the fuck are you on about non-binary people? They're not anything to do with this fucking article. And lastly, never forget that you're not advocating for fat women and non-binary. Oh, wait. Okay, sorry, I get it now. Lastly, if you're not forgetting that you're not advocating for fat women and non-binary people, then your feminism isn't intersectional. I don't understand what feminism has got to do with non-binary people, number one, because feminism is to do with women, not people who believe they are not women, or somewhere in between men and women. Also, if you're going to have a movement for non-binary people, it should be like non-binaryism or some shit, and their rights or something. And fat women, I mean, they're just fat. Like fat people are just fat. Like they don't have more or less rights than anyone because they're fat. Like they might face some social stigmas and problems, but there are also social stigmas and problems that can be solved by different means. So it's not the same as just being a woman and facing problems. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, this is kind of weird. And say it with me now. Fat shaming, diet culture are tools of the patriarchy. Are they? Are they really? It's kind of weird that most of the people who fat shame are women, isn't it? It's kind of weird that most of diet culture comes from women, isn't it? But yeah, don't worry, it's just the tools of the fucking patriarchy. But yeah, okay, let's very, very quickly get into some statistics. So let's get into fat statistics. Oh yeah, you can see my porn down there. Obesity statistics. Let's get a look at that. Let's see if we can see some stuff here. Is it showing up well on here? Let's see if we can kind of see if we can get this showing up a little bit better. Obesity statistics. And boop. There we go. That should look a little bit better on your screen now. Okay, so obesity statistics. 26% of adults in England are obese. A further 35% are overweight, but not obese. Okay, so so that's where it's come from. That. Okay, so I must have read it wrong. Like, so over 50% of people are in Britain, in the UK. Well, actually, this is England. This isn't even Wales and Scotland, but okay. Oh wait, but then it says in the UK. I don't know. Anyway, but okay, I remember seeing a headline a little while ago that over 50% of people are overweight. So I must have taken that as obese. But 26% of people being obese, still not very good, and 35% of people being overweight, still not good. Okay, because a lot of those people could very easily become obese. Okay, yes, let's get that clear. So adult obesity in England, blah 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 blah. Men and women are more likely to be overweight. Men are actually more likely than women to be overweight or obese. 66% of men and 57% of women. Right, okay. Of the obese. 57% of them are women and 66% of them are men. And the obesity rates are highest amongst the 45s to 74, as seen in the tables. Childhood obesity. So we've got roughly about 15% of kids are overweight. It's not looking good, is it? But this is another thing, though, as well, though, is that, like, if you're going to be talking about obese, this is actually not, like, a quarter of people obese. That is quite bad. I would call that an epidemic. So there we've got that. And then let's go with obesity deaths. Oh, spelled deaths wrong. Obesity facts and figures. Let's have a look at this. Is that showing up okay on there? Yeah, I think we can bring this back in again. Let's get these obesity facts. Wait a minute. There we go. So, boop. Magic. The magic of OBS Studio. So, obesity facts and figures. Okay, so we've got... so, worldwide, obesity has nearly doubled since 1980. So, in 38 years... Wait, when was this done? It doesn't say when this was done. Oh, wait, this is 2008. So, yeah, okay, let's say 28 years when this article was kind of written. Obesity had doubled. That is quite substantial. 1.4 billion adults, 20 and older, were overweight. Of these, over 200 million men and nearly 300 million women were obese. That's a lot of people. That's like the whole religion of Islam is overweight. It's like the whole population of China. 35% of adults aged 20 and over were overweight in 2008, and 11% were obese. Okay. 65% of the world's population live in countries where overweight and obesity kills more people than underweight. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Overweight and obesity are the 5th leading risk for global deaths. At least 2.8 million adults die. 2.8 million adults die each year as a result of being overweight or obese. 44% of the diabetes burden, 23% of the ischemic heart disease burden, and between 7% and 41% of certain cancer burdens are attributable to overweight and obesity. So nearly half of diabetes is due to obesity. Nearly a quarter of heart disease is due to obesity. And somewhere in between, let's say about a quarter of cancer burdens are also to do with obesity. Let's be generous and meet it in the middle there with the cancer one. It's just... And then the last thing, obesity is preventable. Could you see now why this article is so careless? So fucking careless. I mean, that is global as well. They're talking global now. We're not even talking UK. Let's go with UK, and then we'll do America, and then we'll do that. That'll be it for now. Okay, so the NHS. This is what the NHS has to say about it. So what have we got here? Let's just get this showing up for you guys. Oh, let's get this showing up. Okay, right. So, being overweight or obese puts men at a greater risk of dying prematurely than women. It's probably part of the reason why, it's probably part of the reason why women live longer, actually. A survey of global trends found obesity was now second only to smoking as a cause of premature death in Europe. A study of almost 4 million people from 32 countries showed that being overweight as well as being underweight increases the risk of dying early. So again, that goes back to some of the stuff we were saying about being underweight, being anorexic and stuff, and how that's bad. People react to it. Okay, compared to people with healthy weight. This is usually defined as having a body mass index of between 18.5 and 24.9. So is that healthy body weight? I don't know. I'm just going to skim through this. Research calculated in Europe, 1 in 7, that's 14%, premature deaths could be prevented if people were a healthy weight rather than overweight or obese. That's quite a lot of people. 14% of the population of Europe, or 4 million, like that is a lot of people who could have been prevented to have died. And men who were overweight were more likely to die than women who were overweight. The study does not prove that obesity causes early death, only that people who are overweight or obese are more likely to die earlier. Now, I know that they have to say that, but let's face it, like, the reason that they get the things that kill them is really down to the obesity. It is down to the unhealthiness. Yeah, and so, okay, blah, 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 blah. So it's 500 researchers, 300 institutions, and 32 countries. So that article that we just read from Broadly is going to dispute 500 researchers from more than 300 institutions in 32 countries. Like, I'm sorry, but some fucking rando fucking Broadly journalist is not going to fucking dictate to me what is healthy or unhealthy about obesity. It's the NHS and the researchers that put the fucking work in. That is who is going to dictate to me what is right and wrong on this issue. University of Cambridge, one of the best universities in the world, and including the UK Medical Research Council, British Heart Foundation, Cancer Research UK, National Institute of Health Research, and US National Institutes of Health. So all these places who are very reputable. I've actually given money to Heart Foundation and Cancer Research before, and yeah. So I am fully aware of how good these institutions are. And it was published in a peer-reviewed journal. So it's been reviewed and shown to be correct, and it's free to read online. So there you go. You can get that from the NHS right there. And it was covered in the UK media, blah, blah, blah. It was fairly accurate in the UK media. Okay, so blah, 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 blah. I don't need to go into that. What did the research involve? We don't need to know that. What are the basic results? Here we go. 10.6 million people, 239 studies, and narrowed it down to 3.95 million people from 189 studies, after excluding smokers and people with chronic disease or who died within 5 years. So the pooled data showed that people with a BMI of 20 to 25 had the lowest chance of death. So that's, I guess, kind of the healthier weight. And I guess they put that 18.5 as people who maybe have like shorter heights and stuff like that. With the people of a BMI lower or higher than this had an increased chance of death. So, so yeah, so for overweight or obese people in Europe and East Asia, every additional 5 BMI points was linked to an additional 39% increase in their risk of death. Wow. I don't know what this stuff means. But that was slightly lower in the US and Australia for some reason, I don't know. Men had a higher risk of death from every additional 5 BMI points compared to women. The increased risk of death linked to overweight or obesity was stronger at younger ages. The increased RR of death for every additional 5 BMI points over 25 was 52% for people aged 30. Wow, that must have been what happened to Boogie then, because I think Boogie's always been big. And he's like, I can't remember how old he is. I think he's like 30 or something. I don't think he's like dead old. but he was at the point where he was basically going to die because of his weight. Deaths from heart disease, stroke, and respiratory. Now, my auntie recently had a stroke, and she is very big, and she is maybe coming up to 60. Oh no, she's 60 something, and she's had a stroke. But other members of my family who are a similar age, who aren't as big, are fine, and fairly healthy. So they've definitely got a few more decades in them. Whereas, I don't know, my other auntie could potentially have more strokes. And respiratory disease was strongly increased for people with a BMI over 25, and death from cancer was moderately increased. Well, it was strongly increased. You see, this is what I mean. Literally, the fat causes these things. So it's a bit like how AIDS doesn't kill you, it's the cold, it's the immune system being killed, and then the other disease that you get kills you because your immune system can't fight it. That is kind of what fatness is like. Like, the fatness maybe isn't literally what's killing you, but it's the diseases that it gives you, or the diseases that you get from being fat, that kill you. Okay. So yeah, in East Asia, I can imagine that obesity is slightly less of a problem, just because of the diet that they have there. But you know, you're looking at nearly 20% of people in North America, and obviously obesity is a bigger problem in North America than it is in the UK. But in the UK, we are kind of catching up, and that is kind of not good. But you know, 20% of people, that's a lot of people. You have to remember, you know, we're talking about millions of people here. So, you know, but yeah, you know, and I'll leave the video there. You know, I think we've came to a fairly reasonable conclusion. You know, obviously, being overweight is just not. It's really just not a. It's not advisable, and broadly have gone out of their way to essentially try and make it come across as something that's completely fine and acceptable. And I don't believe that it is. And I honestly think they need to reevaluate the kind of stuff that they're publishing, because it really is, it's just callous, in my opinion. It's really callous. So yeah, I'll leave it there. It's been quite a long video. Sorry for the length. But yeah, but thanks for tuning in. I'll be posting something up again later today, probably. And I've said this before, I am going to try and do one a week, I think, from here on out. My life is getting a little more stable. I've been moving a bit not from job to job, but the job that I do have is shift work, and I'm looking to move to a new job where I'll have a bit more of a Monday to Friday situation. And also, I've been dating someone. And that's been taking up some time and stuff like that. But hopefully, I can kind of mesh the two, and we'll be okay. But yeah, I'm going to try and do one a week, and if that goes well for a time, and I'm doing one a week, I'll bump it up to 2 a week. I think, if I feel like I can manage it. But yeah, I'll leave it there. But thanks for tuning in again. Please, you know, like and subscribe if you could. That'd be awesome. And yeah, I'll catch you on the flip side. Keep it chill.